It's going good. What do I call you? Codral?
Yeah, that's fine. I just, random name for username.
That works. All right, I am all yours for as long as I am awake.
Okay, so as I said in the private message.
Oh yeah, do you want me to just read that? That's a good place to start. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, let me find that. I'm a bit conflicted on voting. If you could help me out, and I should say, Kojal, that if you wanted this conversation to be private, we can go to a separate room. We don't have to do it in front of other people. It's totally up to you.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm not worried about it. It's
okay. Fine. Just making sure that everyone consents here, because that's the thing. Okay, so you said, I'm a bit conflicted on voting. If you could help me out, I'm not really convinced by what people like Larkin are saying. I do agree that voting for Republican or Democrat would be endorsing the government to coerce, because both of those parties are all about government. However, I don't see how this applies to voting Libertarian. Granted, I watched the debates. I have not watched the debates, so you'll have to tell me how that went. I bet it was a blazing dumpster fire. Anyway, you said you watched the debates, and I see that most of the Libertarian candidates are really just minarchist at best, and some of them, like Judge, are by their own admission Republicans who are fed up with the Republican Party, so they decided to jump ship. I am not talking about them, of course. But suppose you had a candidate that was doing none of that. They weren't about shrinking, but destroying the state. If such a candidate was out there, I don't see how them running would be a violation of anyone's rights. They could be lying, of course, which politicians generally do, but having no way of knowing that, I'm not sure that if that would be my fault. Only reason I wouldn't bother is because of pragmatism. Nobody from a third party had a chance in hell of winning. You are either a Republican or a Democrat, and I wouldn't bother wasting my time registering to vote for a lost cause. But I guess I don't see anything unethical about it. It would only be unethical if you were voting for a coercer. Do you have anything else you want to say, or do you want me to go ahead and respond?
No, go ahead and respond. That's all I got.
So I don't think Larkin or I disagree with you. Larkin and I have talked extensively about this when I was running my campaign for not governor of Texas. And Larkin even modified my position on it to be even more sort of principled, which I was happy to have happen. What I tried to start was a movement in the Libertarian Party of people that were running as activists, that were running what I called NAP-compliant campaigns, meaning campaigns that were not running for the purposes of winning. They were really running as activists for the purposes of exposing more human brains, ears, and eyes to the ideas of voluntarism and libertarianism by standing behind this podium of power that everyone watches, because, people watch the presidential debates really not because they give a fuck about what these people say, but because these people are fighting for power over them. So you have to kind of watch it. So these races and this circus get a lot of attention from normies. And so if we can slide in behind those podiums as activists for the purposes of, just having brief moments to interact with people we wouldn't otherwise be able to, so that we can expose them to the ideas of voluntarism and what I would consider the same thing as voluntarism, libertarianism, then there is no conflict. You're not running to win power. And if you're doing it in a principled way, you're going to be telling people not to vote for you for the purposes of bringing them freedom. Like, for example, one of the big things I changed in my Not Governor campaign was I stopped saying that, if elected, I'm going to, set my people free, whatever. I stopped saying that shit, and I got a bunch of people together, and we all collaborated creating this document called the Declaration of Individual Independence. And it's the original Declaration of Independence, but written as an individual, as the only moral actor ever could be, as an individual. And it's a super cool, powerful document. And so then my campaign just literally became like, don't vote for me to get me into office. I would reject that even if it were offered to me, because that's immoral. And I also said that, look, this entire voting process to decide who has power is an invalid, immoral one. So if you're going to participate in this process by voting for me, do it only as an activist to get me behind a larger podium with a bigger audience to say the same things I'm telling you now. And so that is what I called a non-aggression principle compliant candidate, because they're not going to gain power, they're not going to hurt anybody or violate the non-aggression principle using the guns of government, and their platform, quote unquote, is one that goes out of its way to invalidate the voting process. Because the other part of the thing is, like, if you're a principled voluntarist or libertarian, you shouldn't be trying to legitimize a process that you think is invalid. And if you're participating in it, running as a candidate, begging people to vote for you, well, I mean, that's just legitimizing the fuck out of the whole thing. And so you have to talk like extra loud as you're doing it to make sure that it's very clear to everyone watching that you're not there trying to validate the process. You're there just sort of dancing in the circus behind the podium long enough to reach new people. And so that caused a lot of fucking drama in the Texas Libertarian Party, for sure. A lot of people don't like me. A lot of people wish I would go away. Anyway, so I guess that's my response. I kind of agree with your assessment, actually, that, you know, you have to take it case by case, like everything in ethics. You have to go case by case. Is this person a NAP compliant candidate, so to speak? And if so, then it's kind of a non-ethical issue if you go and pull a lever for them. So yeah.
Yeah, but I remember back before Kokesh was caught doing some like shady threats or something like that. Way before that, he had a debate with Larkin about if what he's doing is acceptable, and I didn't see a problem with it because, you know, he only wanted to be in power so he could destroy the government, sign an executive order to officially abolish it. So, like, what was wrong with Kokesh aside from the threats and whatnot that came later?
So I watched that debate, and let me find this video for you. I'll post it in the voice chat text. For anybody listening, the video's called "Larkin Rose Talks Political Activism with Not Governor Patrick Smith." So this was several weeks into my campaign, maybe a month or two, something like that, and I had just watched his debate with Larkin, and I thought that Larkin made a lot of good points, and I had just also finished having, this was back before I realized that Kokesh was a douche. Kokesh was in my house, like, staying the night. He stayed with me for several days. You know, I watched his dog for several weeks while he was in prison, you know, so, like, I had him around, and while I had him around in my house, we had 2 long, into the midnight hours talks about his process, and this was also after Larkin's debate with him. And I think everyone kind of agrees, like, well, except Adam. But so, like, I think the final judgment from Larkin, and I'm pretty sure that this is, I'm not just making this up, I'm pretty sure this, because I've talked to him about it, that this is Larkin's judgment, is like, Adam isn't doing anything immoral. He's just doing something that is pointless, contradictory, and sort of bad activism because it's legitimizing the process by trying to suck a bunch of people in to be delegates for him, and to have those delegates, you know, go out and, you know, suck up a bunch of activism hours from people and wrapping it all up in the political process, so that he can, you know, do this thing that he would never be allowed to do. Like, his end goal was something that it would just never work. It's not how it works, whatever. Rather than, like, making his platform, like, rather than telling, this was the bitch, and I think this was an aesthetic bitch, and I even made a video about this too. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm just kind of remembering from back in the day when I talked about this. I'll see if I can find the video, but basically, like, I think the difference was aesthetic. Rather than sliding behind the podium as an activist to tell people that they don't need to vote and they don't need a politician to participate in the process on their behalf to get elected, to go into office, to sign an executive order to dissolve the federal government to achieve freedom. That you don't need that. All you need is your own consent between your own 2 ears. You withdraw your consent to be governed, and you take your freedom back by yourself as an individual, and telling people that the way to achieve freedom is by playing the political game is not the right message. I don't think it's immoral because he's not planning on, well, supposedly he's not, trying to get that power for the purposes of using that power. He's supposedly getting that power for the purposes of disposing of that power. So we can't, and Larkin would agree, we can't call that immoral, but we can call it probably terrible activism because it's sending the opposite message that we should be sending, that politics is not the way to achieve freedom. Hopefully I explained that. Tell me if I didn't.
No, that makes sense. I misunderstood completely then, because I thought he was actually saying that Larkin was doing something wrong by trying to use the voting system for that. But
Adam?
he's being counterproductive. What is it?
You said Larkin was trying to use the political process. You meant Adam, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, just making sure.
Okay, so I must have misunderstood that.
Yeah, and you'll even hear Larkin say in the video I just posted to me when I'm in the middle of running for not governor, he says the same thing about me. Like, you're not running to sort of win and hold power, so I can't really say that that's bad. And I think he even says like, maybe, a good thing can come out of this by showing people that principled people have absolutely no chance to ever win in these races, because it's sort of being principled is a direct contradiction to everything about politics, even in the Libertarian Party. And sure enough, it turned out to be exactly that. So
yeah, I see that, but the way I see it is that you get a bigger platform if you do run for president, because now you have televised, debates and whatnot. So you would be able to spread the message more efficiently, probably. Or
yeah,
than a YouTube channel or something like that.
No, I mean, you can look up the Facebook page right now. I think it was Solus Jones and Not Governor 2020. Before my daughter got sick, we were fully intending on sort of upsizing the NAP compliant Not Governor campaign to a one for president, just to go for the biggest podium we could with our message of voluntarism that, in my opinion, is much more clear and effective and consistent than Kokesh's. So.
Okay, that makes sense. I was really impressed with Kokesh back then because I saw him. He get himself arrested a lot, like he showed that he put action by his words,
Yep.
I was pretty impressed by that because I never seen a politician actually, commit a felony to prove his point.
I was impressed by him for many years as well. So impressed that I invited him into my home. I protested outside the jail when he was arrested. I watched his dog. I offered him my studio with, 5 figures worth of equipment for him to use to produce an updated copy of his audiobook. For the Freedom Book. I go out of my way in life to, if I can't do the activism myself, I support other activists that do things, that are doing things, or that are doing things better than I can. That's like what I do in the world. And so, I was a fan, man, and I got burned. So, I mean, I had the only choices I had in that situation were to be quiet and then feel bad when the next person came along that got burned, that I might have been able to prevent by saying something, or to say something and make a nasty video that is difficult to watch.
There was also the fact what I liked about him, because he was actually living the Agorist lifestyle that I'm not in a position I can do just yet. I'm still paying some tax a little bit, but I can't help that.
Well, maybe that's a more important conversation then. Do you see being extorted for taxes as something that is a fault of yours? Like, do you feel any guilt for yourself for doing that?
Sort of, I do. I know it's not my fault that I'm being robbed, of course, but
I think
penny that they get from me.
Go ahead.
I said every penny that they get from me is a penny that's going to be used to hurt people. It's going to blow the bomb for a war. It's going to build, hire more soldiers, police. I mean, so anything I can do to cut that money is going to help people in the long run.
Well, I think this is a really important conversation. I think what you're doing is tax victim blaming. You are a victim of extortion. You have your resources stolen against your consent and used in the worst possible way. Like, there's one thing for a thief to steal your wallet and spend the money on a beer, whatever. it's another thing for like a thief to steal your money and then spend that money in a way that directly violates your consent. Like that's like an extra level of just terribleness. That's an extra level of twisting the knife sort of evil. That's what the government does. They extort your money. You have no choice in the matter. They extort it at gunpoint, and then they spend it on things that violate your conscience. Precisely none of that is your fault. Like precisely none of that. You are blamed. You have zero blame. You have zero culpability for any of it. And to purposefully go out of your way to reduce your income in the world so as to be robbed less is to like double victimize yourself. Like you're victimized once by the government, twice by the government when they kind of twist the knife and spend it on something that violates your consent. And then you're going to go out and you're going to self-victimize again by not living your truest life, doing whatever profession you wanted to do in a free society so that you can, earn less money on the books. So that you can have less extorted from you. It's like an extra layer of self-victimization. Now, if like your freedom, like in a free society, you would be doing things that aren't taxable or wouldn't be taxable now, then fine. I'm just suggesting that you should not modify your life plans because you're being extorted, like thinking that you should feel guilt for that in any way. Just go ahead.
I do understand what you're saying. I just feel like I am. I can't help that. That's not rational, probably, but I want to do what I can do, weaken them at least a bit.
Do you think if they need an extra $5 million, they won't print it?
Well, yeah, they would do that.
Like if you reorganize your entire life to pay zero taxes, and 500 other people that were your friends did the same thing and zeroed out the taxes. 501 people zeroed out their taxes. Let's say it cost the government, I'd have to do the math, but let's say $5 million. And then the government needed to buy one extra bomb. Do you think that would make any fucking difference? Do you think that the income they take from the IRS makes any difference at all to them when they're spending money because they have the ability to print it?
Well, I guess in the long run or short run, it wouldn't. They'd sell that bomb they wanted. But if they keep printing more money, they're going to become weaker over time, right? Because the money is now worthless.
Well, you become weaker too. Here's the thing with inflation, and I learned this from a book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And this was an insider working for the U.S. government, and he would go into other countries and manipulate those countries' leaders to indebt them to the world central banking system, which allows the government dollar to stay on top. And what this book, one of the things that was kind of buried in the book, and he should have made it a fucking headline, but it was something very important about inflation. And this is something that a lot of economists, even Austrian economists, haven't realized, is that everybody thinks inflation is not sustainable. Like eventually the bubble's going to pop and our dollar is just going to go to shit and people are going to be wheelbarrowing dollars to the market to buy a loaf of bread like happened in that one country. Yeah. If all countries inflate their currency at approximately the same rate, then it's the same thing as inflation not happening. Inflation can then go on forever. And so what is being orchestrated by the large governments is they're thumping anybody that sticks their head up and either over or underinflates their currency. Actually, they care less if they start overinflating. If they start underinflating, if they start being responsible with their currency, then that's when these economic hitmen from the CIA and shit get involved and then try and fuck it up. Because all it really takes is for a few countries to start being responsible with their money to fuck up all of the major countries in the whole world's ability to inflate their currency for free. And so...
Are you saying that they actually sabotage other countries' currency so they can keep it on the same level?
Read the book, man. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I didn't know.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes. So if everybody inflates their currency at once, then everybody can print money for free, and it's just infinite, and it will never crash as long as everybody does it at once.
I had no idea that was happening. I didn't know it worked like that. I thought.
Because it's only a problem. Your currency getting devalued is only a problem in terms of like catastrophic economics if your currency is the only one going to shit because you've lost buying power in relation to the rest of the world. But if everyone is doing it, then the buying power stays the same.
Huh. Not sure to respond to that. It's a really good point. I didn't know that was happening. So
Well,
they can just do as much as they want, basically.
Yeah, just like, Yang, his plan was openly to just be like, yeah, we'll just inflate the fucking currency. It's like a
That was acceleration candidate number one right there.
It was a what?
That was the accelerationist candidate, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I guess so.
I also assume that if they tried to raise the taxes of people to make up for the people that didn't pay, they'd hit a wall, like the Laffer curve wall, where they can't go any higher without crippling everything.
Yeah.
I figured there'd be a wall at some point where it would actually hurt them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the only thing that'll happen is if one of the big countries starts being responsible with their money, and it has to be one of the big countries, because the small countries could just be destroyed or invaded or something by the big countries if they start being responsible.
Well, I heard China was making a gold-based currency, I think.
Yeah. So if one of the other countries starts being responsible with their money, then all the inflationary countries will get fucked very quickly.
So this has no effect, basically. Agorism doesn't really, what's the word? Not really hurting them, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts them at all, because they have managed to architect the system such that they can print whatever money they need. And the only thing that the tax receipts give them is the ability to borrow money in addition to the printing. So I think the beauty of agorism is teaching people to put their actions behind their principles and find ways to trade with people without getting robbed. Like, I like that. I like the bravery behind that. That's heroic,
I thought it was a brilliant idea,
Yeah. I mean, it's great. I'm not saying don't do agorism. Fuck. If you can find ways to not get extorted as you trade, that's great. I would just say, don't extra victimize yourself for the purposes of, starving the government, because, I literally don't think that'll make any difference. But
I thought it would, thought that was my, golden ticket right there to do something for good,
Well, those are my thoughts. I hope it helped.
No, you're right. I understand. What's this book called again? I want to see this.
Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I listened to the Audible version, I think.
Is this a stream? Or?
No, I'm just recording it. But yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to one-on-one with me, or do you want to open it up for other people? I'll let Kojal decide.
Not on this topic, no, I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I hope that helped somewhat.
I gotta reevaluate my life, though.